right, everybody, it's the Hey Eric podcast. I think it's episode 10 now. Been doing it for a few weeks. Wanted to update you on a few things in my life and on the market. So first of all, my basement remodel. If you've been following the social media, it's almost done. And I'm really excited about that. All I have left, I think, is some touch-up paint. Carpet was installed on Saturday. I did a few miscellaneous outlet covers, things like that on Saturday also. So this week, Ann and I, we're just going to go through, do some touch-up paint, and then it's ready to go. We're either going to move into it or we're going to rent it out. Still not sure. That's a debate we're always going through, but to me, it's just exciting to have the remodel done. Because when we first started this whole house remodel, so it was 2020, we ended up getting COVID in about October of 2020. While we were home quarantining like so many other people, we decided to remodel our house. So we actually, at that time, moved into the basement because it's like a mother-in-law apartment, and we started demoing the entire upstairs. And that upstairs remodel took us about 3 months. And then we moved back upstairs after 3 months and started the basement remodel. And, you know, if you do the time, we moved back upstairs in about January of 2021. And right now we're in, April of 2022. So that basement remodel has taken us 14 to 15 months, and the upstairs remodel took us 3 months. So just to give a perspective on the importance, you know, obviously we were super motivated to move back upstairs or not burn out on remodeling, but this basement has been dragging on forever. It's been really easy to just close that door and not look at it the last, 5 months, 6 months. But I'm super excited to have it done, move past this, move into it, enjoy it. Oh my gosh, we live in a small house anyways, and then with this basement, it's a little bit bigger, but it's just, I'm excited to be done with these projects on this house. So that's update number one. Next up, our sweet Utah Jazz are in the playoffs. They won game number one. Game number two is coming up away this time. I think it's tonight actually, or tomorrow. By the time this releases, it'll be over. But it's exciting to have the Utah Jazz in the playoffs again. I actually just finished watching, what's that show with Michael Jordan? The Last Dance on Netflix. And when I first moved to Utah, it was in the mid-'90s. And watching the Jazz playoffs in the 90s, was it 95 and 96, when we went to the playoffs, we competed against the Bulls. It was intense back then. I was really young. I was 13 years old watching those games. Was I 13? Yeah, 13, 14. It reminded me a lot of that time, rewatching that Bulls documentary, that Michael Jordan documentary. Are we going to win it this year? Probably not. No, we're not. The Jazz, we're a mediocre team, small market team still. I wish we would have won it back in 95 and 96, but that just wasn't the case. So I do love the Jazz, but it's just not happening again. Someday, hopefully, we'll have a team good enough to win a championship, but I'm not the expert when it comes to the Jazz. That's what we got, the Qualtrics guy and Dwayne Wade owning the Jazz now to try and get us to a championship, but who knows if it'll ever happen. I'm not a diehard Jazz fan. I like watching the games. I like following the team, but I'm not here. I'm not the stats guy. I'm not the players guy. But it's just, hopefully we get a little bit further than we've made it in the past. But first, before we dive into some of the real estate information, I got to tell you, the market's still good. Right now I have three houses, 3 units under contract. All 3 are buyers right now. Yeah, 3 buyers under contract. I have a listing coming up this week who's also going to buy. The market is still hot in Utah. I'm going to tell you a lot of stats about how things are weird right now in the Utah market. I think things are weird in the economy right now. But just know that the market is still humming along. So if you're needing to move, it's still a good time. Inventory is loosening up. Rates are a little bit higher. So some of the, buyers are getting out of the market. So if you're a serious buyer, now is still a good time. So just remember that as I go through some of these stats. First off, Goldman Sachs, the big investment bank, they say there's a 35% chance of a recession within the next 2 years. I think they are the highest predictor of a recession. Someone commented on a post I did today of Deutsche Bank being a 33%. So things are changing. We had that first rate increase last month, 0.25%. There's going to be more of those in the future. The Fed is trying to slow down the economy. It's been over exuberant. I've been saying this for a while with the real estate market, that we've just been too fast, too hot, too heavy, all those things, and it's needed to slow down. The Fed's doing it finally. They're going to raise interest rates again, I'm sure. They're going to take liquidity out of the market. But with that, when you raise rates, when you take money out of the market, that constricts the market, that slows it down. So the soft landing that the Fed's trying to do is do all those things to restrict the economy without causing a recession. It's happened 2 times, I think, in the last 40 years. The other 2 or 3 times it caused a recession. The Volcker recession, the dot-com recession, the housing bubble recession. Not that those were caused by the Fed, but those were recessions of the last 6, I think. There was 2 soft landings. There was 3 or 4 not so soft landings. So that's what the Fed's trying to balance right now. Goldman Sachs is saying 35% chance of a recession within 2 years. The market's definitely changing. Now's a good time to tighten your belt. But if you're still looking to move because you need a primary residence, or if you need a real estate asset because you want to avoid inflation, because remember, inflation's at 7%. It's still a good time to do those sorts of real estate transactions. But be cautious. Be cautious with investments, with money. I always say cash is king, so be careful with that. Keep it in your pocket. Be ready for opportunities in the future. But when I talk about buying assets as an inflation hedge, a lot of people are doing that right now. Rather than having $1 million sit in a bank account and lose that 7% inflation value, people are taking that $1 million and putting it into a physical asset, whether it's a house, a duplex, a multiplex, a commercial property. People are doing that right now all of the time to avoid inflation. I actually heard another podcaster talk about that with the Great Recession. Assets I think it was over 3 years, we're losing 5 to 6% per year after 2008. You translate to the current market with inflation. Right now we're at 7.5% inflation. So if that persists for another year or two, how does the Great Recession compare to the post-COVID inflation period? Are they apples to apples? Some people are saying this inflation period is worse. I don't know what they're selling, what snake oil, but it's still a good idea to think, okay, if you have extra cash and you want to put it somewhere, it's not a bad idea to put it in a physical asset called real estate, whether it's a duplex or something like that. Because right now, multi-unit properties where it's a rental, those are selling at cap rates that are super low. Everything is right now because so many people are dumping cash into physical assets. I'm helping a person right now try and find a multi-unit property for cash flow. It is so hard. Even with 25% down, it is so hard to find a cash flowing property that makes sense. So just remember that. But the big time money are dumping cash into physical assets to avoid this inflation problem. So just something I wanted to share real quick about what I'm seeing with the big money and what they're doing with their cash. Next thing I wanted to talk about was whether you should sell assets. So let's say you have a few rental properties, and I did this probably a little bit too early. I sold a rental property about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, because the market was so exuberant, the market was so crazy, and I was a little bit worried. Did I sell too soon? Yeah, probably, but I sold. I didn't lose money. I made a little bit of money on the investment. But right now, a lot of people are thinking, okay, if you've been holding an investment, whether it's a rental property, a single-family residence, whatever it is it a good time to cash out and move the money somewhere else? That depends. When you sell a property, you're going to pay, real estate commissions, you're going to pay closing costs, you're going to pay title fees, all those things. So there's definitely selling expense when selling a property. I would estimate those at probably 8 to 10% of selling costs when you sell a property. So if it's $1 million property, you're going to be paying $80,000 to sell it. Is that a good decision? Well, it depends. What are you going to do with the money? because on top of those selling fees, you're also going to be paying taxes, whether it's short-term, long-term, capital gains. There's going to be taxes involved. So on top of those taxes, is it a good idea to take that money out of the asset and put it into a different asset? Or maybe you keep it as cash. I don't know. It depends on your diversification. But now is the time to maybe talk to your tax accountant and see if that's a good idea. I know that some people have been doing that because they think the market is just super crazy. And, these are people with like 15 to 20 rental properties. And they're just like, they want to get out because they have a different and a better opportunity. Not that they're going to be putting that money back into rental properties, because no, these people that I'm talking to, they don't think the market on the rental property is going to dip. They have a different and better opportunity that's outside of these types of, rental properties for, single family, multifamily properties. So for you, the investor, for me, the small time person, is it a good idea? I don't think so. I wouldn't, take on those selling costs. I wouldn't take on those tax burdens just to transfer from one asset to another asset. I wouldn't do it. I would hold on. I did do it, almost 12 months ago when I sold my condo in Park City. And that was just because the market was crazy. It was super exuberant. And I'm glad it was gone, because also there was some crazy, it was in an HOA, so the HOA fee was raising. And there's also some weird capital projects they were trying to do. The roofs were about done, so they were having to raise like $50,000 or $60,000 to replace roofs on all these condo buildings. And I just didn't want to take on that burden. So when you think about liquidating or selling investments, there's a lot of things, a lot of variables that go into it besides just, what's the market doing? And think about that. So if you have a question on that, like what should I do with these because of the market and because of these other factors, let me know. Reach out, we can discuss it, because I've gone through it myself and I know other people have gone through it that I talk to pretty regularly. The other option is, if you are going to transfer those assets from, sell this to get that, you can always do a 1031 exchange. There's a guy I know right now doing one, and I have a new listing coming up, and he's already thinking about buying it because he needs to put this money from one sale of a fiveplex into another investment. Otherwise, he has to pay the capital gains tax. So talk to a professional, your tax person, your real estate person, about a 1031 exchange if that is something that's going to make sense to you. But remember, if I were you, I probably wouldn't sell anything because I don't foresee some crazy recession or shakeout. It's only if you have somewhere better to use the cash that I would recommend it. But this isn't financial advice. Next, macroeconomic fears, they persist. The stock market is, pretty flat to negative, I guess. Obviously, Twitter's doing really good because Elon Musk is trying to buy it out with lots of drama. So there's a few stocks that are outliers, but for the most part, the market indices are red. So, the market is doing a lot of different things, and it's because of all these macroeconomic fears with rate increases, liquidity removing from the market, a war in Ukraine, all those things are going into it. The crypto market's suffering also. Bitcoin this morning was under $40,000. Ethereum under $3,000. So all those things are going into the general market, and it's affecting asset prices. So think about that as you do everything in life. It's investing in real estate, stocks, all those things are important to do for your long-term success, but there's a lot of market fears right now. So physical assets are good. Just make good decisions. Talk to your financial advisor about that, because it's not me. But I just wanted to finish this up with that, like I said at the beginning, the Utah real estate market is still really hot and going really well. We're about to close on another flip in the Bountiful area. Super excited about that, because in the end, we're taking this really distressed asset. We're going to make it a great livable home and sell it, on the open market to probably a first-time home buyer, because it's a great starter home. And that's because, the Utah market is a great market. Lots of people are coming here. The jobs are still here. When we talk about these recession fears that Goldman Sachs is talking about, Deutsche Bank, Utah, we have such a good economy, such an aggressive legislator, that we have a lot of great things going for us. So long term in the Utah market, I'm not sure I'm seeing a recession in the next year. What I'm seeing is a stabilization, a market stabilization, where buyer demand shrinks a little bit because of rates and things like that, and fear probably, and listings continue stable where they're at. This morning when I looked up the active listings on the Utah MLS, it was at 2,800. About a month ago, it was probably at 1,800. So I see listings staying stable, buyer demand decreasing, and us finding a more balanced market in the long term. So that's what I see in the market. If you have any comments, hit me up, eric@blackwellrealtygroup.com. Go to heyeric.com and check out my information if you have questions. Love to hear from you. Thanks.